Hey guys, Sundown here. It's going to be my chapter review to Nanatsu no Taizai, or the 7 Deadly Sins, 271, Sincere Feelings. Now, this is one of those chapters, I gotta apologize first, where no matter what I tried to do, every time I tried to review it, something came up, and I just had to keep pushing it further and further back. So it's like 2 days late now, so apologies for that. But let's get through it, because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about in this chapter. Not really the initial part, I'll go through it, but the last, like, 6-7 pages especially, I think actually the last 10 pages around about were dirty, and we need to just talk about those straight away, well, within this chapter review anyway. So we got a cover page of Zeldris with his bae Gelda, so I knew we were going to get some backstory on them this chapter. And we start the chapter with a conversation between Ban, Meliodas and Wilde, with Wilde realizing that Ban and Meliodas know his younger brother Hawk, whose actual name turns out to be Mild. So we have Wilde and Mild. Now, due to a sandstorm, Ban and Meliodas follow Wilde back to his place, which is a giant pig-shaped kind of abode. And there's like pig-shaped furniture, pig-shaped water fountains, you name it. I mean, like the table has like a pig face on it. So it was just like very pig-esque everywhere. And Ban and Meliodas are given some kind of this part was actually funny, because I feel like the manga stream translators were just kind of having fun with this, but it was funny to me anyway. Ban and Meliodas are given some wart tea made from the ass warts of a tig old biddy. So that made me laugh, and I was like, yo, these guys, they're proper trolling, but I don't mind that. That's alright. If you're trolling in that situation, cool, that's fine. So Wilde tells us that the Demon King took Hawk away when he was born, and sent him somewhere far away around 8 million years ago. Meliodas tells us Hawk popped up in Britannia about 16 years ago. So if a minute in the real world is a year in purgatory, the math works. That's quick maths. Wilde then says he doesn't know why Hawk was taken away. Meliodas tells him that it was so the Demon King could keep watch over him, and obviously this surprises Wilde, who finds out that Meliodas is in actual fact a son of the Demon King. With Meliodas telling, let me just put my laptop on charge. Yeah, so with Meliodas telling us how the Demon King used to use like normal real world animals to kind of keep watch over him, to make sure that he was vigilant of his duties. But these animals, because they were real world creatures, they would always wind up dying due to unfortunate accidents, or being predated upon, or something like that, or short lifespan, something like that. So this is why the Demon King eventually turned to a creature from purgatory. It would be so much more robust, so much more durable, and it would be able to get the job done. It would be able to keep a watch on Meliodas for many, many years. So all this talk of Hawk gets Wilde really excited, and he asks for more information about Hawk. You know, it's his younger brother. He wants to know about this younger brother he hasn't seen for thousands of years. So Ban and well, actually, it's not even been thousands of years. It's been millions of years, 8 million years. So Ban and Meliodas tell Wilde about his younger brother, making Hawk sound a little bit more warrior-like than he actually is, and how they kind of carry on talking about him, telling him all these stories about Hawk. However, they tell Wilde so much about Hawk that they accidentally start telling the truth about him, which kind of puts Wilde into this temporary shock, because his concept of what Hawk would be like, or Mild would be like, was completely shattered, and it wasn't anything like he thought Hawk would be. However, even after Ban asks if Wilde is disappointed, Wilde simply says that although his brother is different from how he imagined him, and has walked a different path, has led a different life, he still loves him as his younger brother. And this kind of evokes Sean Connery. This kind of evokes a new emotion from Meliodas, one which we haven't really seen before, where he just kind of smiles and agrees with Wilde that he loves his precious younger brother, you know. And you can see on Meliodas' face, he's just thinking of Zeldris like that's kind of relationship I wanted to have, what I used to have with Zeldris. So with the storm having blown over, the unusual trio make their way towards the Demon King, and in his pursuit to retrieve his younger brother, we find out that Wilde has fought the Demon King 12,118 times and has lost every time. Now, first we have to give props to Wilde. The guy's fought the Demon King so many times, 12,118 times, and hasn't died. He's durable as hell. And second, considering how strong Wilde was just shown to be, this is quite a negative outlook for our boys here. You know, we have Ban and Meliodas, who were struggling to even touch Wilde, and Wilde just got, like, he's been getting wrecked by the Demon King for jokes. So Meliodas comments on how good of an older brother Wilde is after hearing him sing a lullaby he used to sing to Hawk. So Meliodas is just, this is kind of like an emotion-packed chapter for Meliodas, you know, just nostalgic, thinking about his younger brother and all that. So this then brings Ban obviously to question Meliodas. Why have you been making weird faces whenever Wilde has been talking about his younger brother? And Ban already knows that Zeldris is Meliodas' younger brother, but he doesn't know about Estarossa. So Meliodas tells Ban that the story of his younger brothers are neither interesting nor worth hearing, which is weird because then he then proceeds to tell Ban all about Zeldris. So first, actually, he surprises Ban by telling him that Estarossa is also his brother, the middle child. Now Ban comments on how Estarossa looks nothing like Meliodas or Zeldris, a very, very important point when we come to the end of the chapter. So Estarossa looks nothing like Meliodas or Zeldris. I don't think Ban actually mentions Zeldris, but he looks nothing like Meliodas. Obviously, Meliodas is like, well, that's not his fault. That's just how genetics works. You know, sometimes a child won't look anything like their parents at all. It's just how it works. So Meliodas then talks of how when he was leader of the commandment and a candidate to be the next Demon King, he was idolized by Zeldris, obviously. He also tells Ban how even then he thought the war against the goddesses was foolish, but he spent day and night in battle against the goddesses as the leader of the demon clan. You know, he couldn't just defect because he was the leader of the demon clan. He needed to make sure that his clan would survive, and that's why he was going to war against the goddesses. So Meliodas tells us that Zeldris was a sincere, honest, hard-working, learning how to fight from Meliodas, you know, really pushing himself and fighting hard for the sake of the demon clan. He would continue to fight, and he worked incredibly hard for reasons Meliodas couldn't quite comprehend. But then Meliodas met Elizabeth, and everything just suddenly kind of became clear about his younger brother. He understood his younger brother and his desire to continue to fight and continue to get stronger. He realizes that this was all just to protect his loved one, which was Gelda, and we then see Zeldris smiling up at Gelda. Now, Gelda and Zeldris were a thing before Meliodas and Elizabeth were ever a thing. So Meliodas tells us that while the rest of the demon clan kind of just fought for no reason, Zeldris steeled himself, became cold and cruel during battle specifically, and fought as an executioner for the demon clan in order to protect Gelda. Because he loved Gelda so much, he basically just wanted to finish off this war, make sure there was no immediate danger surrounding Gelda and himself, so that he could just live out his life with Gelda. Now, during this time, Meliodas swore to put a stop to the war and betray the demon clan, essentially, accidentally starting the holy war. Now, due to Meliodas' betrayal, the vampire clan couldn't contain their hatred for being subservient to the demons any longer, and they rebelled. Zeldris was the one who was sent to quash the rebellion, essentially whooping the vampire sect's ass. However, the Demon King ordered one more thing of Zeldris, which was to kill Gelda. Now, I assume the order was more along the lines of kill those who rebelled against me, and she was obviously one of the vampires who rebelled. And this would have obviously destroyed and ruined Zeldris emotionally. Or did it? Usually I roll with whatever Nakaba says, but I don't see how Meliodas kind of bears any... I kind of see actually how Meliodas bears some guilt here, but I don't understand why Zeldris would particularly be bitter about this in any way towards Meliodas. Firstly, we know that Zeldris didn't really kill. He didn't actually kill any of the vampire sect at all. He sealed them away because he couldn't bring himself to kill Gelda. Second, if Meliodas is guilty for his failings as an older brother, I agree with that. But even if he was the best older brother in history, he couldn't really have done anything for Zeldris in this situation. So I'm not too sure why he feels guilty. I mean, like, even then you would still have that guilt of, I couldn't help my younger brother. But there's not much he could have done about it. And so what we really have to come back to is the reason why Zeldris supposedly hates Meliodas. So Zeldris hates Meliodas for defecting from the demon clan, which led to the rebellion of the vampires, which then led to the order for him to kill said vampires and obviously kill Gelda. However, he didn't kill any of the vampires, and Gelda was still alive because he just sealed them away. So I'd understand if he was bitter because he'd learnt that Meliodas later killed Gelda specifically, but we don't even know if Meliodas actually killed Gelda in that backstory we got, you know, the vampires of Edinburgh. And it's always been assumed that Meliodas did kill Gelda when she asked him to kill her, but we simply don't know. Meliodas could have just sealed her 2.0. So I feel like Zeldris is kind of this little part here kind of ruined Zeldris's bitterness. It kind of improved Meliodas' stance in terms of his guilt and just wanting to be there for his brother in a tough situation. But Zeldris is kind of, the whole backstory of his hatred towards Meliodas is kind of, it's not been founded very well. It's not been grounded very well. Simply because he didn't kill Gelda, he just sealed her away. So that was fine. I don't understand why he'd have any further hate. I mean, I understand that Meliodas kind of led to that situation, and you'd have that kind of beef. But after 3,000 years of being sealed away, you'd think he'd have some time to think it over. So Wilde then brushes off this story and asks about Estarossa. He's like, "Oh, okay, that's one of your brothers. What about the other one?" Meliodas laughs it off and says this is a story for another time, but is then shocked because he can't actually mentally recall any memories of Estarossa. He just can't. The factual recall isn't occurring with Estarossa specifically. So suddenly we hear the Demon King just pop up out of nowhere, who also says he can't remember anything about Estarossa specifically. Confirming to himself that he does in fact hate Meliodas' emotional side, the Demon King then shows himself behind, like towering over this mountain and above our three heroes. He's just chilling like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" So the real question here, actually no, we won't get to the real question, but that's how the chapter ends. But we'll come on to the real question, which is, what the hell did Gautha do 3,000 years ago? Now, we know that Gautha has screwed with so many people's memories, but let's break it down a bit. The best theory, well, actually, let's break it down even further. Now, we know that Estarossa, for some reason, can't be, his past can't be remembered by both Meliodas and the Demon King. And we know that Gautha is somewhat related to this because he's supposedly the one who stopped, or who was aiming to stop, the Holy War 3,000 years ago. Now, Estarossa is the wild card here. No one seems to know anything about him, and his memories are all weird as shit. They're all tied in with Elizabeth and his love for Elizabeth. They're tied in with like the theatre of the goddesses and stuff like that, and you'd wonder why Estarossa would be able to go to a place like that, or even know of a place like that. So the best theory I've heard, or I've seen, for Estarossa is from a guy called Ivan Wiki on the Nanatsu no Taizai subreddit, who I had the same idea as, but he's just explained it so much better than I ever could. I'm just going to read it off from him, and I think he went so much deeper as well. He tied in so many different things that I just wouldn't have remembered because I haven't reread Nanatsu no Taizai. I'll actually put the link in the description so you guys can read it. It's only like 2 paragraphs, but it's really well done. Now, essentially, when Meliodas defected, the goddesses were heavily favoured to win the Holy War. This is where OG Gautha stepped in and somehow tampered with everyone's memories. He made them believe, and I truly believe this now, he made them all believe that Mael was killed by a demon called Estarossa, another son of the Demon King. In reality, there is no Estarossa, and there was no Estarossa. Mael is Estarossa, or Mael was Estarossa and still is Estarossa. And due to OG Gautha's memory tampering, he defected to join the demons, you know, because he thought he was Estarossa. He thought he was a son of the demon clan, or the Demon King. So he went to the demon clan, and he kind of just defected from the goddesses. Now, in reality, like I said, there is no Estarossa at all. But the real question here is, did Mael consent to OG Gautha doing this huge kind of memory switch thing? And if he did, it would make things a little bit more believable and would explain Gautha's kind of guilty expressions, like maybe him and Mael were like really best buddies or something like that, and they were both planning to stop the Holy War in some way, and maybe this was like their last resort kind of thing. So Gautha really didn't want to do this to his buddy, but it turns out that was the only way they could stop the Holy War, was by making Mael essentially die, and by the Demon Clan gaining Estarossa. So it would explain away why Gautha has kind of been so guilty about this whole situation, and why he's also questioned why he doesn't really want to tell the rest of the sins. And it's because it's such a big thing, you know. I mean, like, if you told this to the sins, they would just go apeshit, and I think they'd probably kick the shit out of Gautha. I don't know why he wouldn't actually tell the sins. But with this, the goddesses supposedly lost one of their strongest fighters in Mael, and the Demon Clan gained a fighter on the level of Mael. So suddenly the goddesses were on the back foot. And as a result of this, the goddesses were forced to seal the demon clan, a plan which was also probably injected into their minds by OG Galtha. So Evans' wiki then does a really good job of showing us how the flashbacks between Estarossa and Meliodas specifically, and even Elizabeth, are almost obvious. They're quite obvious edits, and when you think about it like this, they're obvious edited versions of Mile talking to Ruduciel instead of to Meliodas. So it's Mile talking to Ruduciel instead of Estarossa talking to Meliodas. So it would make sense for Mile to have been cowardly as a youngster. You know, as someone with such a monstrous ability later on in life, usually the ones with such a monstrous ability granted to them later are grounded to begin with. You know, they're very timid and stuff like that. It's a trope we've seen in mangas before. I mean, like, look at Hulk. That's not really a manga, but he's, you know, monstrous ability, but really just a timid guy outside of it. Yeah, so I'll link Evans' wiki's theory in the description, so take a read. But the only thing that I felt, I mean, like, if you read through it, he'll talk about how you know, whenever we see Esther talking to Meliodas, he was actually talking, it was just Mile talking to Ruduciel, and it would explain away how Ruduciel told Elizabeth of Mile's feelings for her and things like that. And the only thing that I think takes away from this theory is that it doesn't explain how or why Mile Estarossa would have lost his grace. Did the supreme deity kind of recall it once she thought that Mile was dead, and then she just kind of like, oh shit, he's dead, I need to grab that grace back out of him, or something like that? Or did the Demon King award Estarossa with the commandment after Mile was thought to have been killed, as kind of like a reward for Estarossa? And you'd assume that once he gave him a commandment, the grace would pop out of him or something like that, because I assume one person can't control both a commandment and a grace at the same time. I don't think they'd survive in the same body. But yet, I was not one of those people who was on the Mile equals Estarossa kind of hype, but I'm thinking this could be legit. So let me know what you guys thought. Read that Evans wiki's his kind of theory, essentially. Let's call it a theory. And yeah, read through that and tell me what you guys think about whether Mile is actually Estarossa, or whether Galtha really did change everyone's memories. Because people are saying he couldn't change the Demon King's memories, but you have to remember the Demon King imprisoned Galtha because of his insane ability. He was like, this guy is a danger to everything, so he imprisoned Galtha because of that, and he allowed Galtha to make that doll just because of how insane his abilities were. He was like, we do still need his abilities, but I'd rather have him in prison. And possibly because of Galtha's radical thinking from what we've seen so far. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of his theory. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in a bit.